This is a test of the boundary part alert system.
Evening, lads.
Evening, Dan.
Nice you to join us.
Yeah, I was getting a beer. Sorry.
So here we are, a week after the first win against Bolton. 2 games. We could be looking at 9 points now. You know, nice and tidy. I think we're 1 place off the relegation places at the minute. Yeah, where did it all go wrong from the Bolton win?
Too many chop and changing, isn't it? For me, as soon as you get a side that wins a game, you got to put whether they're going to make the. I know they're saying there's fitness issues, but for me, you know, you've got to start that team and play with what you've got. Players are never going to buy into chopping and changing, especially if you win a game and then they go and throw other people in there. Confidence is at rock bottom. Players need that stability to think, if I do put in a decent performance and we win a game, I'm going to play the next one, and doesn't seem to be the case. Obviously, we're talking after the game today, and we just look lost. You know, everyone's coming out and saying that was probably the best side that we could put out, and on paper it probably is. And first 5 minutes we looked like we could turn it on, but after that we just looked completely lost, didn't we?
I mean, continuity and momentum's key in football, isn't it? And then once you win at Bolton, you think, right, we've got to kick on here, and what better opportunity than 2 home games, Carlisle at home, Port Vale at home. And then you get to the Carlisle game, we made 5 changes to there. They've not made a single change to theirs. They won last week as well. And then from then, I mean, we certainly the Carlisle game, we should have been 3-0 down in the first 15, 20 minutes. And that's potentially being kind. I mean, we were outplayed for the majority of that. And then today, again, we've just now recorded 1 point from 5 home league matches, which is nowhere near good enough, is it? Let's have it right.
No, not at all. I think, like you said, Adam, to change a winning team, yeah, there might have been an argument to bring Zach Durnley in as the scorer, but I would argue that the top 3 of Rowe, McElhaney and Bahambula was the best combination we've had in that Bolton game. I think it shows how poor Bolton were, to be fair, because I think Carlisle and Port Vale were both decent sides. I thought Port Vale played well today. I thought we made it easy for them. But again, I think we're just not physical enough as a side in this division. Too easily bullied. Today was one of those. It didn't stop raining, did it? It was a typical boundary park day. Pissed it down for 90 minutes. It was hard to stay on your feet. It was always going to be scrappy. You were going to have to roll your sleeves up. And they had some big lads, but big lads all over the pitch. Like their winger, that 19, first half, he was really, really good, but he's a big lad as well. He's not just a tricky winger. He's a big lad, and we were losing those battles, weren't we? And it's only going to get more like that as the season goes on, as the pitches get worse, isn't it? It's going to...
Well, Matt, you're making that point there of they had a big side. What did we do in that first half? Lumped every single ball into them.
Yeah.
And that's all we did. Our midfield, granted it's a young centre-mid pairing, and I put online at half-time that they look lost, because they do. They need someone in there who's going to scrap for them. And they can't play together. And I think playing 5 in the midfield just takes away the structure at the back. So for me, it needs an experienced grafter who's going to put a foot in, and one of them, but not playing 2.
I mean, I sound like a broken record. I mean, I've come on here and I've said it a lot, really. We're crying out for a Chris McCann in midfield. And it makes a massive difference. It made a massive difference last year to stabilise the midfield and make sure that, even if nothing else, that the defence get a bit of a break from a constant onslaught. And we've not got one. You can rotate all you like with McCalmont, Whelan, Garrity, but none of them are the experienced head in midfield who's just going to put the foot on the ball and control the game. I mean, Port Vale today, their number 4, Luke Joyce, did exactly that. When it went to 2-1 and we started applying a bit of pressure, he just went, right, give me the ball and I'll control the tempo for a bit. And that's
he slowed it down.
Yeah, he did.
It killed off anything that we were trying to do because everything was at their pace.
See, it's not doing Danny Roy any favours either, is it? Because he's the one player who's
dropping because of the lack of service.
He's trying to do that. He's trying to get around, and he is the most comfortable player on the ball in the middle of the park. But he's playing all over them. He's popping up everywhere. And so he's not part of. There doesn't seem to be a system that we're playing to at all, does there? That seems to be the problem. There's very little to come out of that game today and the game against Carlisle to be positive about, really.
There was one positive for me today. I think Harry Clark did quite well in his full debut at centre half. I thought he did. I mean, he left a cross, I think, at 2-1, which nearly cost us a third. It was a good save from Lawler, but apart from that, he was absolutely fine. I mean, the fact remains still that you've still got your potentially or probably your best centre-back not in contention to play a game of football for us, which seems ridiculous now the transfer window's closed. But again...
And it seems unlikely that midfielder you're talking about is going to be coming in either as well as a result. So, I mean...
It's just mad. No, it's mad that, how many weeks have we been talking about this now? Since the first episode, we're saying the same thing over again. We're missing an experienced centre midfielder who's done it and been there and put his foot in and got either promotion from this league or played in a higher league. We're saying it every week. How can they not see it?
Don't know.
My major concern with this, though, is if we don't act and get one in, like a Chris McCann figure, then that could be the difference between staying in League Two and dropping out of League Two. I mean, we've now got an absolutely massive game on Tuesday night at Southend, and we're only, 8 games into the season, and we're saying that? It just doesn't bode well, does it, really?
No, it doesn't. I think McElhaney has looked lost since the Bolton game. I thought that he had a lot of chances against Bolton. For some reason, when Durnley's in the side, McElhaney doesn't seem to be involved. It's just... That's why I was saying before that it seemed to be that McElhaney... Rowan Bahambula up front was something, but McElhaney seems to be too deep, and he didn't have any chances today. He wasn't even in the mix for a chance today, and he's our top scorer, and he needs to be up and around there. And I'm not saying that Durnley doesn't deserve a chance to be up there, but Durnley seemed to be running around on his own, lost with no one around him for most of the game today. Like, he worked hard, chased everything down, but it was a thankless task. I thought when Phage came on, him and Bahambula down the right-hand side linked up quite well. They looked like they wanted to get forward, and they had a little bit of...
it looks better there, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
It looks like a bit more fluid.
When he was playing that right-hand side and when he was on right wing, he looked fish out of water, but playing at right back, he looked a lot more solid. And, granted, when him and Borthwick Jackson came on, we actually started passing the ball on the floor. And I know they'll probably blame the pitch as to, water was starting to hold on the pitch when it was that heavy spurt. But
again, I think that comes down to it didn't seem to look like they actually had a system that they were trying to play. Like, they didn't seem to know what they were doing. And it made it really easy for Port Vale, who did know what they were doing. So, yeah, I mean, it's good. We know that this is going to be a long, hard season. We've not even been tested in terms of the squad yet. We've not had suspensions and injuries. He's going to have to start having some consistency in the team he puts out so that we can try and get some kind of cohesion in a first 11. He's going to have to stick with something. He can't keep changing things around. And then we're just going to have to say, like you say, hopefully on Tuesday night we can get a good win against Southend and kick on a little bit. But we're going to be relying on the fact that there's worse teams in the division, and maybe we can get wins against some of those worst teams to stay up, because when we come up against anyone half decent, where the failings are all too obvious, aren't they, unfortunately?
Looking at the bottom of the table, and over many years, really, in every division, generally it's your home form that keeps you up, and your home form that you get enough points to keep your head above water. That, from the first 5 games of the season at home, looks like we're going to struggle with that. So we're going to have to flip that and be pretty decent on the road to get sufficient points in order to stay up. And you look and you think, it's not the easiest task to do that, is it?
I'll tell you what I'm very, very disappointed in is those 13 cardboard cutouts today. They just didn't get behind the boys enough. They sat there, socially distanced. They didn't create any atmosphere. So I think they're going to have a word with themselves.
After another disappointing loss for Oldham this Saturday against Port Vale, it's time to look on to the next games. We play Southend on Tuesday and Salford on Saturday. Both these games will be away games, which probably benefits the Latics as they've earned more points away from home this season than they have at home. First up is Southend on Tuesday, a side that is yet to win a game all season. Their only 2 points coming in draws, one against Crawley and the other against Exeter. Off-field issues have held back Southend this season, including them being placed under a transfer embargo. In terms of their attacking output, in their 8 games this season, they have averaged 6.8 shots per game. 3.4 per game are outside the box and 3.3 are inside the penalty area. Only 0.1 are inside the 6-yard box, which does back up their poor attacking output with only 4 goals this season. In terms of individual scorers, the 4 goals are spread amongst the squad. 3 of Southend's goals this season have come at home. Their possession is also quite an interesting stat. With 50.7 possession, it's clear that Southend like to keep the ball. They also have a 71.5 pass percentage completion. They have won 19.1 aerial duels per game. Although they are a bigger side, they look to pass the ball around short more than they do long. They have a total 440.8 passes this season. Out of those, the accurate passes, 31.8 are long passes and 287.3 are short passes. Compared to the league average, it's not many chances, but compared to Southend, Oldham fly above Southend in chances created. In their 8 appearances, Oldham averaged 12.4 shots per game, 5.1 outside the box, 1.1 in the 6-yard box, and the big one is 6.1 shots per game inside the penalty area. Out of the total 12.4 shots, only 3.1 are on target per game, which is not a good stat for Oldham fans to look at. Chances are not being taken by the Latics, even though they have one of the top goal scorers in the league. Conor McElhenney is on 5 goals in 8 games, but the impressive player for me is Zach Durnley. Making only 3 appearances this season and 2 of which from the subs bench, he's managed to pick up 3 goals. The area for concern is the Latics backline. Not picking up men from corners is another issue, and it has been shown again against Port Vale. Latics were unable to bounce back, and that is something we haven't been able to do this season either. In terms of the League 2 table, it is not good reading for Latics fans. They are currently in 22nd with only 5 points from a total 8 games. However, the benefit going into Tuesday night is the fact they're playing a Southend side that are bottom of the league.
Massive changes need to be made with, the structure of the side, stability within the players that are there. We need to find a formula. Like we say, 7, 8 games in already in the league, and do we know our best formation, our best lineup?
So what's the issue then? We do have some good players. We do have some talented players.
Yeah, denying that.
So we have to give Moore a little bit of credit in terms of bringing in some good players. We can't say that he's brought in really, really crap players all the time, because he does bring in some decent players sometimes. So why aren't we getting who's the problem there? What's the problem? Is it the players? Is it the manager? Why have we started the season so badly?
I think there's a mix, really, isn't there? Because the off the field problems can't help. The recruitment, albeit seems slightly better this year, being more domestic based. The quality in certain players is very good, or certainly a lot better than what we've had. In others, we brought players from the 5th and 6th division of England, English football, instead of 5th and 6th division of French football. So it hasn't made too much of a difference, and I'm very loath at the moment to put any blame on managers and head coaches, because I just don't think that they're the problem here. I think they're a symptom of a root cause that is so much higher than them. I mean, for me, it was pretty pointless getting rid of Benid, and then it was pretty pointless getting rid of Dino. And to be fair, it'd be pretty pointless for me to get rid of Kuhl. I just think that there's problem areas all over the place. I mean, before the weekend, I listened to John Askey, Port Vale's manager, their pre-match press conference, and he said that Oldham, in one game in particular, said that he thought that they looked pretty decent. I presume he meant the Bolton game. And then other than that, he said they looked like totally unbalanced and at times looked like a mess. And in essence, it's exactly that. And we don't look balanced in the slightest, but that comes from not having the experience and the old heads in there, that the know-how to just grind through a game. I mean, again, I keep referring to Port Vale today, but they had like Leon Legg at centre half who's played God knows how many Football League games. They've got Luke Joyce in midfield who's played God knows how many Football League games. They've got Theo Robinson up front who's played God knows how many league games for a number of different clubs. And it's
He's
just
been promoted with a few of them as well.
Yeah, it's just a know-how about how to manage a game, and where, like I said before, when Joyce just took the tempo back to his level and thought, right, well, I'll play.
Yeah, and when we've made these signings and they've been coming in like Clark and McCalmont, you know that they're good players, they're talents, they're young lads at Premier League clubs, but you know that they're not for us. It's not what we needed in this squad at this time, is it? And it's unfortunate. Like you say, you've already said it before with Garrity, Whelan and McCalmont, it's just too inexperienced in too critical an area of the pitch. They're just getting overrun, aren't they, all the time, and making mistakes and putting the rest of the team under pressure. And I mean, there's not really much in terms of what we've got available to us to do about that, is there? That's the problem. There's not really much that Harry Kewell can do with the midfield because he doesn't have the players to do it with. So
Danny's right in what you're saying in relation to fans are wanting change. At the moment, obviously, we're not getting that change. And until drastic changes are made, I don't think that culture is going to change. Most fans are expecting losses week after week after week because the squad in general purely isn't good enough. You look at our bench today. Not being funny, our bench was so poor.
But that's the thing when we play,
who've got to come and change the game?
When we play our inverted commas best 11, it really means that there is no impact off the bench, is there? That's
exactly
the thing. There isn't that strength. When we get players, I think Barnett picked up his 5th yellow, not in the league, but those are starting to mount up, and there's bound to be injuries coming up. We are going to struggle, and it's very frustrating because what is needed is not going to happen quick enough for it to happen and have any effect on this season. So it's just a tightrope this season, and it's just a worry that we're just kind of like basically praying that we make it through this season in League Two. It's kind of just a hope and a prayer, isn't it? It's not, because there doesn't seem to be that much more that we can do, really.
Wheater and McCann seem to be like there was a dispute over McCann's trigger of a contract, so he ended up being released, and then the Wheater now is just not available for selection due to what we believe is the issue regarding the furlough and the furlough payments and the top ups and what have you. Now, if the guys at the top cannot put their ego to the side for the sake of this, then they're potentially going to have a football league club becoming a national league club very quickly, because they're two players that could make a massive difference this side, absolutely massive, and
that takes out any lasting value in the club. The football league ticket that we have is the only thing that holds any value at the moment, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yeah. There's nothing else of value that would bring anyone to pay money for the club if they were to look to take over.
Yeah, well, we're just going to keep having this very frustrating conversation, aren't we? Because week in, week out, nothing seems to make any difference. Whether or not that the owner and Moore think that they've got enough in the squad, and then the inevitable Harry Kewell firing comes in a few weeks' time because they think that Kewell's not getting enough out of the squad and he's got enough players and good enough players to be available, and that the Wheater thing isn't an issue and all this. Feels like that's just inevitable, doesn't it? I mean, if we lose to Southend on Tuesday, I think he'll be gone, even though he's out with COVID. I think it'll probably happen. And I wouldn't be, I don't know. I would only be happy about that if somebody came in who was a seriously good option. But again, who's that going to be, and is it very likely?
I mean, touching on that, I mean, you say about if Kewell goes, what's the alternative? And that's one of the reasons why I think it's pointless getting rid of anybody. Getting rid of Benida, I didn't see who was going to come in that was going to make so much of a difference. Dino stabilised it to a degree and managed to steer us to safety with a couple of okay additions. And then getting rid of Dino, and you think, right, who's going to come in now? And then Harry Kewell comes in. And again, you just look and you think, who would take the job that's any no, knowing what the situation is in the background at the football club? Because people talk, reputation goes before you. It's an absolute mess.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
It's a mess.
We've had better managers in position and that have gone already. Like, we've had much better managers. We shouldn't be where we are, but we are because of the way that they've handled it. So the buck always stops with the owners, doesn't it? Because they've made the decisions that have led to where we are now. You know, we're still watching the games. We're still hoping for the best. Still have optimism that we're going to win, and we're still loyal. But it does get harder, doesn't it, to just keep that belief and to keep that optimism up.
Abdallah's got to come out and say something. We've raised it with Carl, and obviously fans put it as the highest thing, openness and engagement on the survey. The fans are crying out for direction of where the club's going to be taken, and they want action from that direction. And if that isn't happening, I keep saying it, we're literally repeating week after week. But unfortunately, nothing's happening. Where do we go? It's just a downward spiral that's continuing. He's got to come out and address it and tell us where he thinks that we are. Because unfortunately, Mo's not coming out. Abdallah's not coming out. Barry's come out this week, completely unrelated to what's going on at the club. But I don't think fans really want to hear from Barry. They want to hear from the people putting the money in the club. Well, yeah. No, they definitely don't want to hear from Barry. But they want people who are putting money into the club as to why the situation's arising that they are. I
mean, even Carl says that he's in touch with Adballah regularly. Even if Carl came out and said, "Look, I've spoken to Adballah and this is the message that he wants me to pass on to fans," that's not happened. Carl can't really be a spokesperson for Adballah, really. He can, but he can't speak on his behalf. He can only repeat what Adballah says if it's going to have anything. Do you think Abdallah's just scared now, or do you think he's just? Is he hiding from fans because he doesn't want to speak out? Is he just being disrespectful? Well, why do you think he isn't?
I think he knows, since obviously Rowington Cricket Club, where I think he thought things could have changed, wasn't handled well by the club, and I think everyone acknowledges that. Ever since then, it's been a downward spiral on and off the pitch. So for him, he's probably taken a massive dent to his ego, if you want to say, and no one likes to be told that they're doing things wrong. However, when you're ploughing money into a club, a football league club, which at the moment is teetering on the end of going into National League, drastic things need to happen. Whether he likes it or not, he needs to suck it up and come out and tell fans exactly what's going on. He's an adult. He's a businessman. He knows that the only way that fans are going to get back on side is by him coming out and addressing the key issues and saying what's gone wrong. Why hasn't things gone right? Not using excuses, come out with factual evidence of what isn't going right at the club and why. And only then will they get any respect from supporters.
Yeah, and what he's going to do about it.
Exactly.
We want to know what he's going to do. Because he's obviously not happy with the situation. He's obviously not happy at being third bottom of League Two as it stands this afternoon. And he obviously wants the club to stay in League Two, and presumably he's thinking about what he needs to do. Well, share that with us. Let us know, because we really want to know. Because
it's not difficult, is it?
No.
It can be done on Zoom. We're having a Zoom conversation now. Why is it that difficult to get hold of him to say, listen, we're doing an interview?
Not that he wants to be interviewed, but I just don't think that him coming out with a written statement is going to do that much either, because I can't see that the content of that being what the fans would want. Do you know what I mean? He needs to be pushed. We need to see something from him, read a little bit more, see a bit more of the man.
If it's been done by the club, the interviewer, whether it be Mikey or whoever, has to have free rein to ask whatever questions they want. Because it's all right, the scripted interviews of managers and things like that, and protect him in that sense. It's beyond that now.
We're waiting to hear from Adballah. We're waiting to hear from Trust Oldham. They've replied to me my request to come on the podcast. They said that they will, but they're not going to do that until after a meeting in November. I don't know when that meeting in November is. I don't know if it's on the 1st or on the 30th. So I don't know when they're going to be coming on. Again, that's frustrating. We're having to wait because we need to know what their strategy is or what they want to do next. You guys at Push the Boundary have got your survey results back. You've presented them to Carl. You've recently said on Twitter that you've been reaching out for fans for like a Zoom conference kind of thing. Yeah. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Following obviously the results and quite a lot of fans engaging with us via emails and messages and things like that, we thought we'd put it out to supporters to try and get a focus group together of supporters who are wanting to affect change and maybe put their ideas forward to suggest how we move forward as a fans group. Now, it was put out to our supporters of Push the Boundary and obviously on the website, Facebook, Twitter. So it's gone out to everybody. It's not exclusive to Push the Boundary support. It's open to everyone. So everyone's got a chance to voice their opinion. So no one can come back and say, I wasn't given the opportunity. Everyone's been given the same opportunity. So we're going to be doing a couple of Zoom calls with people where they can raise ideas, thoughts, concerns, whatever they want to put forward to us for us to try and progress with the club. And it's only little things like that we can go to the club with. These are coming directly from fans.
There's a good podcast in there. I think we could do that with maybe not necessarily after maybe the first few focus groups could be private, whatever. And then maybe, some of the fans and some of the points could come together for a slightly smaller one. And we could have a discussion which would make quite an interesting podcast in terms of bringing up some of the stuff that people have said and actually getting fans' voices out for the club to listen to and for people to listen to, because I think that's important.
I mean, I think it's important that the reasons why we've taken this step is to, instead of it just being us four making decisions between us on the back of what we believe fans want from us, actually to hear it from a group or, like I said, Adam said, a focus group of supporters to voice their ideas, the pros and cons behind each idea and evaluate it that way. And I think that would be a much better way of moving forward. It's getting to a point where it's pretty drastic now, isn't it? I mean, We're getting to a point of no return, really, in respect of we're 8 games into a season. People say judge after 10 games. We're close to that, and we will be there this time next week. And either way, we're not going to be much higher than, say, I don't know, 16th, 17th at best, and that's getting probably 6 points on the road from 2 away games. So I think it is a good move, and we've had a good response. It was overwhelming, really, the response that we've got. So hopefully they'll come to fruition shortly. And
I think it's just a case of being ready now and being prepared for whatever comes next, whatever's the situation is. There's a few options, isn't there, of what might happen in the next one till before the end of the season or by the end of the season. By the end of the season, we don't know what's going to happen. This is Oldham. Anything could happen between now and the end of the season in terms of personnel, in terms of what kind of bombshell might drop on. But just assuming that things stay pretty stable in terms of management and all the rest of it, we're either going to be a League 2 club or we're going to be a National League club by the end of this season. And if we stay in League 2, it's probably going to be in and around the bottom. It's going to be I can't see us mounting anything other than that. It's going to be a survival mission. So we're going to be going into next season where things really, really need to change. And this season now, I think it's just a case of mobilisation, isn't it? It's a case of trying to get everybody on side and putting some kind of a plan together in terms of what we're going to do, how we're going to be strong. I just wanted to sort of put this out to you guys today about what it is like now. You know what I mean? Because, people say about loyalty being you go home and away and whatever, or you've been supporting the club for 30 years. But in the current context, with all things considered, with the fans not wanting to put money into the club, fans don't really know how to support the club at the minute, if you know what I mean. They don't know what the best thing to do is. It's dividing loyalties. What do you lads think that it means to be loyal to Oldham Athletic at this moment in time?
You've not prepped us for that one, have you? I think it's a very difficult one for fans to have an idea either way at the moment. I mean, you look at, obviously, the COVID situation and the way things are being run at the club. It's very difficult for fans to get on board, whether you've been supporting the club for 2 minutes or 20 years. Football's always about a family feel to it, and going to the games has a massive pull for a lot of people. And we've said it on podcasts, fans are really starting to struggle acknowledging that Oldham is where it is, and people are starting to dwindle in numbers from supporting Latics, which is horrific. It's horrible. All my family used to go to the games. Now, pretty much me that goes to the games from my family, group. And I'd imagine, I'm not the only one where families have stopped going, and you don't want to be going through it. You want to be going to the games. You want to be putting your money into the club. You want commercial people to want to sponsor the club. But for me, I've not gone for a season ticket this year, and it was purely down to how things are being run. But Oldham's always going to be my club.
So where do we channel our loyalty? That's what I'm trying to get at. Because what I'm afraid of is this apathy and this desertion of Oldham. People are still fans. They're always going to be. All they want is an opportunity to get their club back to be, we've seen the pictures on Twitter this week, that goal at Forest Baxter, those, people are looking at those things and they're getting goosebumps and they're thinking, that's what I want. That's my club. That's what I want it to be about week in, week out. But we know that that's not going to be the case. So where do we channel our loyalty in a productive way, which backs the club in the long run, even if we're not backing the current regime with our cash? Danny, have you got any thoughts on that?
It's a tough one, this, Matt, to be fair, because loyalty, like Adam said, the club will always be at the forefront of people's minds, whether they attend games or not. Fans are desperate to get back to Oldham Athletic. So people walking away from the current situation are walking away, like you said, from what's happening off the pitch. Because, I mean, if we supported Oldham Athletic for glory, there wouldn't be many left, would there? Because we'd had 30 years since we've done anything of any note. People want a club run properly, and to be looked at to be in a proper football league club that represents the town in the best possible way, and that isn't happening at the moment. Where you go from there, it's tough because it needs drastic change and leadership again from the top to re-engage the supporters. What we're trying to do is mobilise supporters to give them something to believe in, that the fan base isn't apathetic anymore. It's ready, it's there, it's vocal, it should have a voice and it will have a voice. I think that's key, that people should and do believe in that. Like I said, supporters are desperate to get back to Boundary Park. They want to be at Boundary Park, but things need to change before they contemplate doing so. I mean, I've not got a season ticket this year. My dad's not got a season ticket for the first time. I think he started watching 1970, maybe slightly earlier, and that's the first time that he's not got a season ticket. So it's heartbreaking, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But I think what I'm driving at is in terms of what fans is basically what you're doing in terms of like trying to do that, trying to mobilise people, trying to get people back on. Their focus being on Oldham Athletic in a different way, and channeling their loyalties in a different way, and looking to come together and be there and be ready. Because, like you've already said, like the apathy and the way that people desert in the club, that just makes it unsustainable. It makes it a poor investment for people that might be interested in getting involved financially. So I think what that question of loyalty is, I think that's what people that are listening now and that are Oldham fans need to ask themselves. I think that's what I'm getting at is, what do you do if you're a loyal Oldham fan and you want to stick by the club? You want to make sure you've got a successful team to support. What are you going to do? I think that's the question I'm putting out, really. I
mean, it's imperative that fans believe in the fans having a voice that's heard at the club, because until if the club keep push the boundary, or any other fan group at arm's length, then unless they're willing to make drastic change off their own back, then it isn't going to happen. If they want supporters back to Boundary Park, they need to listen to supporters. They need to take on board any criticism put their way and respond to it in a professional and proactive manner. If they choose to ignore supporters' voices and people walking away from the club, then supporters have got to either get louder or mobilise, really.
Macclesfield have put out an incentive for supporters where they can start by paying £100, £250, all the way up to, I think it's about £5,000 investment into the club. And I think things like that would be good. However, I don't think supporters will be willing to put that sort of cash into the club directly at the moment. Now, whether that be an idea where, a new owner came forward, or whether fans wanted to do that themselves, but even with fans wanting to do that themselves, the money's still going into the club. So it's a very difficult situation as to how you do that. Unfortunately, I've not got an answer to that at the moment. I genuinely don't know how you would get around it.
Well, we've had this conversation. You know what? I've got some ideas and stuff. The bottom line is, the trust should be in a position to take money from fans, which we build up as a war chest. It's the only organisation that we've got that's able to do that. But unfortunately, the trust isn't trusted either. So we've got the supporters trust and the club that the fans don't trust that should be taking that money in and they're not doing. It's really, really, really frustrating that both of those things, both of those organisations are where they're at. Adam, I wanted to ask you, you went on that webinar, did you, last week? Was it the SFA webinar? What came out of that?
Yeah, Clubs in Crisis. Unfortunately, we ticked pretty much every single box of what the FSA suggests is a club in crisis.
No surprise
From
there.
Instability to financial issues to disputes over payment, reduction in season ticket sales, ownership having an involvement in team selection, everything. It was almost like a full house in bingo. Everything that they were coming out with was showing us as a major club in crisis. There was obviously things that they suggested to the supporters trusts and, supporters groups that were on there. And one of those things was engaging with the supporters, which is obviously what we've taken on board and what we're looking to do. But for me, the FSA have already said from September last year that we were a club in crisis. Things haven't got better from that. We're ticking more boxes now than we've ever done before.
And what, if anything, do they have? We know that, right? We know that, they know that. We're a club in crisis. So, what was that meeting? Was there any hope in that? Was there help in how, or what? Or was it just a case of understanding if your club is in crisis?
Well, unfortunately, it's one of those situations, and the FSA addressed it as well. If your owner is not willing to sell, then you are going to struggle with change, and you're going to continue to be a club in crisis until there is a massive change, whether that be, like I said before, a significant investment or something along those lines to show change. However, it was more about raising awareness for the club in its current guise and making sure that the FA, the EFL, all those sort of organisations know what's happening. The EFL know what's happening. Obviously, there's been suggestion of embargoes and things like that before. They know exactly what's going on with the club. The PFA are involved with the player disputes, obviously with regards to the payment. They know what's going on. There's only so much that you can do as supporters by raising those flags to them. They're aware of it. There's got to be some responsibility from the EFL, from the FA, as to what happens with clubs like us. There needs to be some law or something in regards to rules set out by them for owners that aren't keeping up to standard. And whether it needs to be an independent panel, it can't be people part of the FA or the EFL, because obviously everyone has their own agendas. It needs to be, whether it be supporter groups or trusts or whoever is on that, to make those decisions, because unfortunately at this moment in time owners can pretty much do what they want. And that's the really sad part of it, that they don't really have to answer to anybody.
It's not just a business, is it? That's the thing. It's you can't just mess around with it. To them, it is a business. But I mean, what other business would you go into and lose so much money without any kind of glimmer of hope of making it back? Because that's where Adballah's at. He's invested millions into a business which he has no hope of making that money back from. So it doesn't make any sense from a business point of view, and it's just messing around with the emotions of thousands of people.
The worst thing about this for me, though, is I think Adballah does believe that he can and should get the money that he's put into the club back, and that's where it becomes dangerous, because Oldham Athletic Football Club, as it stands, and probably ever will stand under Adballah, because there'll be more money coming out of his pocket than going in, is not worth anywhere near what he says that he's put in. So, at what point does it become? One, how dangerous it becomes, as to, does Adballah suddenly decide, actually, no, I'm not putting any money in anyway, so it goes that way. Does he turn down offers continuously for the football club because the offer is lower than what he believes he's put in, so you don't get out that way either? Or does he stop the investment in the footballing side of things, in which potentially or probably losing your Football League status, at which point any hope of anything left of Oldham Athletic Football Club is the golden share in the Football League, and we won't have that at that stage. So at what point does it end? You look and you think, I have no idea. No idea.
Yeah, because we've got someone owns the club, someone owns the stadium, and then it's so disjointed, isn't it? It needs the most important thing is that everything comes under the one ownership. Again, there's a lot of politics involved there. There's a lot of investment involved there. But
And it's the concern as well, Matt, of obviously, say, for example, Adballah takes that on. That ground is then part of Oldham Athletic. If we continue to potentially be on the verge of administration as we are at the moment, then we could be potentially losing the ground as well. So it'd be good to get it all under one umbrella, but there needs to be extra finance or money found by Adballah to do that, because at this moment in time, on the verge of administration doesn't suggest a steady and solid structure moving forward, does it?
But even if he does find that investment and he pays whatever it costs to buy the ground on top of what he's invested already, the club is still not worth that amount, is it, to somebody else coming in to buy it? So that's the problem.
I mean, if he had obviously the stand and the ground to go with it, you can understand him possibly getting a lot of what he's got back, but he's not put that money in relation to buying the ground, so he's never going to get anywhere near what he wants.
I mean, if you're led to believe then that the ground is worth £6 million, which is the amount banded about to suggest what he agreed in principle with Blitz back in March, if he did find that money and buys the ground for £6 million, then he'd then presumably value Oldham Athletic. If he says that he's put £4 million in, he'd then value Oldham Athletic as a whole at £10 million. And in essence, that isn't right either, is it? There's probably ways of generating income once you own the ground, more so than renting it from or leasing it from a landlord. But it's still not going to touch the sides, really, as to how much he'd expect to get back at whatever point he believes he's going to sell. That's another point as well, that whilst we've not heard from Adballah, the last correspondence that we've had from the club or from hearing from the court was that he had a deal in principle for the ground. We've not heard a single thing about that since, and we're 7 months down the line, nearly 8 months. I mean, there needs to be serious clarification on, 1, the position on the pitch, 2, the position off the pitch, and 3, the direction that we're going to have to move, because it's going to end up one way, this, and it isn't going to be pretty, sadly.
No, unfortunately not. And I'm sure there's people watching. We know that there's offers coming in and stuff, so there are people that are interested. They're going to have to do it. I mean, the very frustrating thing is when we talk about these amounts of money, you talk about 10 million quid, and Oldham's not worth 10 million quid. And there's, reserve left backs down the road that are worth twice that. It's very, very frustrating because it's not that much money. And then what we've had with the project big picture and the types of money that they're chucking around, again, not enough. The amounts that they were saying, it wasn't good. By the time it reaches Latics, it's not enough money. I agreed with what Barry said on that interview, that the deal in principle wasn't. It was the only thing I agreed with, because I think that he was desperate to take the money. They were desperate, and you could feel the desperation from the club to take project big picture money, despite the obvious dangers to the football pyramid down the line. It's like, well, we need money now, so we'll take that money. All that money is money to keep us alive. It's not money to help us thrive. So yeah, Oldham Athletic needs some serious investment. It needs someone that can come in and drop 20 million quid without batting an eyelid to buy the ground, to take the club, to invest in players, put an infrastructure in for 5 years and say, right, this is the plan. That's what it needs. It needs that level of investment. 4 million coming in from Adballah, not enough. Just not enough. He doesn't have big enough pockets, does he? Deep enough pockets. If he pulls this 6 million out of the hat, presumably that's only going to put him under more pressure. And it means he's got even less finances to put into other sides of the club. So there's just not enough money. Where does that money come from? Please tell me where that money comes from.
Well, yeah, Dan knows. Yeah, go on, Dan. No, it's one of those things where we've been quite lucky in the past where we've had players coming through that we can sell on for a decent profit. Emerson was one. We're now getting into Murray's tenure of players coming through. I think Emerson was the last year of Philliskirk's bunch. And now the rest are now from Murray's. So obviously we'll start seeing whether it's a good move to bring Murray in and sell him, or whatever he's called, into the youth team, to see whether we're getting any of these players through. Time will tell us to whether they're good enough and whether we make anything from them, because that's what's kept Oldham alive in the past.
But again, it's not enough, is it, in terms of what
we're talking? No, it's nowhere near enough. But if it's a top-up every year, it helps.
Yeah, it's valuable. Of course it is.
It's massive.
But that's just money that keeps us ticking over. That keeps the bills being paid and just keeps the status quo. And we don't want the status quo. We need
at this moment
else.
in time. We'd take the status quo because of the direction we're going.
Of course, survival is everything.
Of course, it is.
In terms of because I think we all agree that if the ownership don't change what they're doing, then the ownership needs to change.
I don't think there's any other way of dressing that up, is there?
No. So then it's kind of a case of where does that new ownership come from? Because the club was for sale under Corney for donkey's years, wasn't it? No one wanted to take it on. We're arguably in a worse position now than we were when Corney took over. Right, maybe we've got some less debts in some areas, but we're in a worse position in the league. We've still got this situation with the ground and the North Stand. So where does the money come from now?
I mean, the simple things that could be changed, admissions made that certain mistakes have been made and the rest of it, that could improve us ever so slightly but mean a lot to a lot of supporters. So by treating, sponsors right, by going out and engaging in the local community and getting people back on board, I acknowledge that the club hasn't been very good at that side of things for the last 3 years under Abdallah's tenure, and basically coming out and telling people what they've done wrong. And the reason, going back, I know we've mentioned it again earlier in the podcast, but I think it is to do with why he's not addressing fans. I think it's to do with saving face, because I don't think he wants to admit the mistakes that have been made by him during his tenure at the football club. Now, until that happens, and until he gives and provides a full and thorough update to supporters as to why things haven't gone very well since he's taken over, what will change, and how he plans to change it, and gives tangible measures that people can go, right, all right, you said that 6 months ago, you've now done that, or you've not done that, why have you not done that? And stuff like that. And unless the change has to happen from the very top, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, in talking about revenue, the last 2 home games, I've noticed that the scoreboards are off, the advertising hoardings are off. Do you know anything about why that is? Has anyone got any ideas? Because all I see is big, empty revenue spaces that aren't being used.
I saw that today as well, and I questioned it during the game. And apparently they were off on Tuesday as well, were they?
They were, yeah.
Which, if that's the case, then, like you said, there's revenue streams to be made on them. And there's the sponsors that should be flashing up on the LED boards.
Are we getting enough sponsors to put on there?
Well, that's it. It opens. I mean, I hate those electrical advertising boards. When they went up, but and then when they're not working, I worry though that we're losing, that the club's losing money, and that's it's all adding to the strain that puts us further and further on the line. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Is it just that people aren't actually putting forward that no one wants to sponsor, no one wants to do it, I
mean, there was a home game last year where I was sat in the Rochdale Road end and we must have been getting beat, or the game was absolutely dire, but I had a look at the hoardings for the LED boards for a few minutes, and they were just the ones like your Emirates for the FA Cup, and Carabao for the Carabao Cup, Sky Bet for the Football League, Community Trust had something on there, Oldham Vending had something on there, who've now become the shirt sponsor. But there wasn't a major amount of sponsors. Whereas I've been to last year, I went to Curzon, Ashton, and York, and there's advertising hoardings everywhere, and they're full. And it seemed like if the sponsor wanted to sponsor the club at Curzon, then they'd do anything to accommodate that. And I'm sure that Oldham hopefully would be of that same ilk, but again, we just don't seem to have that number of sponsors somehow.
Maybe I should ask Jamie to come on the podcast at Latics and tell us about the challenges of the commercial side of things, because I don't
see why not, because it'd be an interesting chat, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and he's only one guy, isn't he? I presume he's got a tough job on his hands, hasn't he? I'm not pointing the finger at him personally by any stretch of the imagination, but he's the one person who could tell us.
Give people an idea of, what sort of money can be raised to potentially help the club. I don't think obviously having the issue around the OEC is helping. I think a lot of people were annoyed when that facility was taken away. You look at the other 3 stands and the facilities are not even close, are they? So whether that was a factor in people not wanting to contribute, because the amount of things that you could do in the OEC, even at the moment, they could be making money off, but they're not doing.
Which is, I mean, I think it's why it's important that Push the Boundary keeps going on and swelling in numbers and showing people, showing sponsors, showing commercial people that there is people there. There is people interested in the club. There are fans there. Even if season ticket numbers are down and all the rest of it, I think we need to be showing. I think that comes back to the question of loyalty again and about presence, that the fans are there, that we do want to be back at Boundary Park. We want to be spending money on Latics related stuff because we want to support our club, but we're not doing for various reasons. But it's important that people realise, and the more people we can get joining up to Push the Boundary, and the more fans we can say, we're still here, and let people know, look, we're still here, and we're not going anywhere, and we're actually growing in our support for the club, even if it's what we want the club to be, and we're backing each other as fans. That's the message in it, Danny, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it is imperative that during times of adversity that fans do stick together and really pull together to make a difference. And hopefully the club, they should acknowledge that the fans should have a voice, and that's where we want to move forward, really.
That's the thing. And look, we're going to keep coming back to it because that's what this podcast is about. That's why you lads are on here. This podcast is about, there's loads of stuff you could talk about with Oldham. We could talk about all kinds of great things that have happened in the past, and we could have players on, and we could do this, that, and the other. And it's all very valid. And hopefully we'll get to the day where we can relax a bit and we can do some of that. You know what I mean? And we can all just be enjoying being Oldham fans, and we can have managers on and players on, and we can have people on, and we can just talk in a relaxed way because there's not an undercurrent, there's not the tension, the underlying tension that is obviously there at the minute. So that's obviously where we want to get to. But
we're all fed up of it.
But we're not there. Let's be honest. We're not there at the minute, are we? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, at the minute, we're going to keep banging on about this every week. Grow the Push the Boundary numbers. Trust Oldham are going to be coming on soon. They're going to have to make their own account of where they're at, and they're going to have to tell us what their plans are. We're pushing that agenda. We're pushing the agenda of let's get fans involved. Let's show people that we're here, we have a voice, and we want things to change until it changes. Because it's going to, and I know you lads have got the bit between your teeth. You're not going to let it go. I'm not going to let it go. And I'm hoping that rather than getting bored of listening to this message every week, people are going to want to it's going to keep chipping away at people's apathy and knock it in. And apathy is going to be replaced with proactivity. That's the whole.
That awareness needs to continually be there to keep the pressure on, because if the pressure's not there for the club to change, then nothing will change. If you put the pressure on to try and change the ways that things are operating and how staff are treated, X, Y, and Z, things are never going to change. But you've got to put that pressure on to try and affect change. And if you don't, and things do go from bad to worse, at least you can say, listen, as supporters, we did our bit.
Yeah.
I mean, apathy was one of the played a part in us being relegated from League One, because we just seemed to accept being between 15th and 19th season after season after season, and at one stage it was going to catch us out, and it did. Perhaps in a season where we didn't expect it with the quality of players that we had at that stage, but that can't happen again. All right, we've let apathy take hold in League One, and we've gone down to League Two. But we can't, as a fan base, we cannot afford for it to be apathetic, certainly when we're teetering on the edge of the National League, because there's some clubs that have ended up in non-league that really ought not to be in non-league. You look there now, and you've got Wrexham, you've got Stockport, you've got Chesterfield, who are
Notts County. Such a frustrating club, Notts County. It should be so much bigger and better than what it is.
Definitely. We can't afford for that to happen, so fans do need to, and I'm sure they will do as well, do need to mobilise and really get behind, one, what we're doing, and two, believe that change will happen, because it will happen in some way, shape or form. It's just whatever we're left with at that stage, isn't it?
I'm done now with the negativity. I'm done with the apathy. It's got us absolutely nowhere. Well, correction, it's got us to the bottom of League Two with a depleted fan base. So it doesn't work. It doesn't do any good. We've left the running of the club up and the direction that we've been taking up to people who have taken us to this point. And we're all very frustrated with that. But we have to we have to hold ourselves to account as fans. And we have to say, what are we doing? What have we done? What efforts have we made off the pitch? By supporting the trust, by supporting Push the Boundary, by going that little bit extra. So that's where we're at now, isn't it? So you lads keep doing what you're doing. Your engagement is growing all the time. So what you're doing is going in the right direction. You're having a positive effect. Everybody who's signed up and who's contributed is also having a positive effect. Those numbers are going in the right direction. So I think it's a great place to end this podcast on a positive note this week by acknowledging that and saying, in terms of what the fans are trying to do now as a movement, as a fan base, as a group, as in terms of supporting Push the Boundary, we're going in the right direction. Even if we're not going in the right direction in terms of the table, I think it's encouraging that we are going in the right direction as a fan base.
And it shows fans want that change, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Fans want to be able to put something back into the club. And obviously, the growing numbers that we're finding, people are realising we want the same thing. We want to be winning games. We want to be going back to games. We want to be putting money into the club. But there's going to be so much that changes.
Yeah, and we're going to put pressure on for that to happen.
Of course.
And we're going to show that, but through strength in numbers, and that's literally all we can do. And by presenting what we find in the best possible way, which again is what you're doing. So fair play, lads, as ever. So that's it now. We've done. We've spoke about Oldham now. So whatever it is you're doing on Saturday night now, you've done. You can shake all that off. Go and do something else. Talk about something else. Forget about that.
We've got to enjoy my night now.
We've got three more sleeps before we have to worry about it again. Southend on Tuesday.
No, we've got to win. We've got to win Southend, don't we?
Massive game.
Do you think we will? I think we will.
I think we will. I think looking at obviously how they've been recently, I think it should be comfortable. But saying that, this is Latics, isn't it? But yeah, I'd be going for I know we like to concede, so I'd be going for a 2-1.
I think we can outscore Southend. I think our problems lie when we face teams with a decent attack, which is why we're going to lose most of the games against the teams in the top half. But I think we will get enough. We will get points against bottom half teams, and especially those that are in and around us, the likes of South. I haven't looked at the fixtures. I'm hoping we've got a few of those coming up. I think we're hoping we're playing Scunthorpe soon and teams that are in and around us.
I think Salford's after that, isn't it?
Salford next Saturday.
That's not what I wanted to hear, lads. Not what I wanted to. No.
After the Southend games comes a trip to Salford. With 13 goals in 8 games, they're one of the more attacking sides in the league. Averaging 13.4 shots per game, they are also a side that likes to have possession-based football. Averaging 51.2% per game, they clearly like to pass the ball around and do so successfully, as they have 67.9% pass completion. They are also not afraid of getting stuck in with aerial balls, having won 23.6 aerial duels per game. Salford's top goal scorer this season is the veteran striker Ian Henderson. However, Salford have been using him in behind young striker James Wilson. Henderson has got 4 goals and 1 assist in 8 games this season, and Wilson himself has 3 goals and 1 assist in only 5 games, and 1 of which from the bench. Managed currently by former Oldham boss Paul Scholes, the side have had a weird season after sacking Graham Alexander from being unbeaten after his start to the season. Scholes, during his time in charge, has 1 loss, 1 win and 1 draw, the draw most recently in a 1-1 tie with Crawley. Whether Paul Scholes will still be in charge come the Oldham game is yet to be seen, but the former Oldham boss has got his side playing attacking football, usually deploying a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 setup. What seemingly takes place as a 4-3-3 off the ball and a 4-2-3-1 going forward, they have an extra midfielder pushing forward to boost the attack. This could be very dangerous going against an Oldham defence that is leaking goals this season. Conceding a total of 17 goals this season, that will be scary viewing for Harry Kewell. The only benefit for the Latics is their goals scored, as we say every week. 11 goals this season is an impressive feat for a side struggling at the bottom of League 2. Points lost this week will be a massive negative for the Latics, as they really need to start gaining points to get up the table and away from the drop.
Well, yeah. We'll see what happens. I will talk to you after the Salford game.
All right, mate.
If we get 3 points out of those 6, I guess we'll all be reasonably happy, won't we?
That said, it's,
I mean, we'll be ecstatic if we get 6.
I'd hate to lose to Salford, though.
Me too. Oh, big time. Oh, horrible. Yeah, obviously. Oh, absolutely. No, we'll be ecstatic if we've got 6. We'll see what happens. Cheers, lads. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Cheers, gents.
Cheers.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers. Thanks
It's
for
all
your
right.
time. The Boundary Park Alert System is a Studio 6 production. It's hosted, edited and mixed by me, Matt Dean. You can contact me on Twitter at DublinOAFC and the show on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at OAFC Podcast. Our email is bpalertsystem@gmail.com for all your voice messages, and please, if you like the show, do review and subscribe on whichever platform you listen. If you'd like to know more about Push the Boundary, you can visit their website pushtheboundary.co.uk and follow them on Twitter at PTB_OAFC. The title music for the show is by DJ and producer Starion, and you can visit redlaserrecords.bandcamp.com for more information. Thanks for listening.